What's going on, guys? This is the Edge DFS. We are doing Showdown. This is the Washington football team versus the Dallas Cowboys, the middle game of the Thanksgiving slate. It's a pretty good one here, man. I'm actually pretty excited about this matchup here, man. My name is Tyson Smith. I'm joined by Ellie Hernandez. This is our third show of the day. Actually, technically, this is our fifth show of the day. So anyways, let's just jump right into it, man. What are your thoughts on this matchup here, man? And by the way, how are you doing?
Pretty fun day. It's nice to take a little break there and play some video games for a little bit, honestly. Look, I think this is going to be a pretty decent game. The good news is we got some pretty shitty teams playing against each other that have some talent in some interesting spots. So generally those games can turn into something pretty fun and exciting as opposed to watching a shitty team play a really good team. So I'm kind of excited for this one. I think it's going to be a fun slate of football just all day anyway.
The fact that we have Andy Dalton back really makes things at least interesting. You know, I didn't want to have to figure out if I was going to play Ben DiNucci or whoever the fuck else they have on the Cowboys. So it's nice to have Andy Dalton. He's not going to break the slate. I don't think he's going to have a particularly good game, but at least there's an NFL quarterback starting for this team, and there's going to be at least an additional amount of offense that they can actually score. I can expect at least 2-3 touchdowns from them as opposed to 6 points. So that makes things a little bit more interesting. So let's go over to the Vegas lines here. Let's take a first look at this matchup, a little bird's eye view of everything. You've got the football team coming into Dallas. They're in a dome. This is actually the third 3-7 team we've talked about today, and that's playing on Thanksgiving, which is insane. I still don't know why they have to have the Lions play every year, but we'll get into that on another day. So both these teams actually have a shot in the NFC East, which is interesting. I mean, this, dare I say, this has some playoff implication?
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs?
I mean, I don't even understand how that's possible. But with the Eagles losing, I mean...
and the Eagles have the toughest schedule left in the NFL, too. So, I mean, there's a good chance that they may not make it through.
So, the Cowboys are favored mainly because they're at home. They're minus 149. They have an implied total of 24.5. They're minus three favorites. Washington is 126. They have a 21.5 implied total, and the over/under is 46. So it's not going to be. Bless you.
Excuse me.
It's not going. That was aggressive. It's not going to be a shootout. It's not going to be a barn burner. But I think it's going to be pretty entertaining. Both of these teams, specifically Washington, is actually a pretty tough, pretty disciplined team. I wouldn't say Dallas is disciplined, but Washington has something to prove here. They have nothing to lose. And if they win this game, they have a chance to win the division and make a playoff game with Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera is a great coach. He's dealt with adversity this year. I think Dallas is trending down, even with their quarterback back. So what are your overall thoughts on this matchup? Who do you like in this game? And who do you think is going to have the most ownership? Actually, I don't even have to ask you that question. We all know that Dallas will. But who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I actually kind of like Washington to win this, man. Their defense isn't terrible. It's pretty good. And I think a lot rides on the success of Andy Dalton for Dallas Cowboys. And to me, that's just not something that I want to believe in.
Yeah.
I don't even like the Cowboys, and I have a hard time, I just feel bad for them. They're in such a shitty situation.
Yeah.
But I honestly think Washington's going to come in here and play some decent football. Ron Rivera is a great defensive mind. I think Alex Smith being back kind of gives them a little bit more dimension on the offense than people expect. And I think that's why people are favoring Dallas so much and because they're popular as hell. So
yeah.
I'm excited for it, man. I think it's going to be interesting. I think the line might be a little low. I can see this being a little bit higher scoring. But again, I don't know. I think that depends on how well Andy Dalton plays and whether or not the Washington defense shows up. So, I'm excited for it.
I actually really like Washington in this game. I rewatched that Washington versus the Bengals game last week, and they look pretty good. I know they're playing the Bengals, but look, the Bengals are arguably better than Cowboys. Actually, maybe that's not even an arguably. Maybe just they are in general. So I feel like They played pretty well last week. They have some momentum. Alex Smith is getting his legs back, no pun intended. And I think they have some weapons on this team. Their backfield is great. They have some great young wide receivers. They have a top 10 wide receiver in the league with McLaren, Scary Terry. So, on the Dallas side, I feel like they have a lot of talent. So if that talent is realized one of these days, then they can absolutely go off. We've seen it. Without Dak, there's just no hope, in my opinion. I think Washington can take this game relatively easily, and I just don't think anybody's giving them a shot because people aren't paying attention to the football team. They've already written them off, and we all know that the Cowboys are popular, and it's going to be easy to build lineups with guys you know. The football team, you have to dig deep, and this is why spending an hour breaking it down, listening to us talking about it, and just forming your own opinions. This is going to help us talking about this too. I know I'm going to have better lineups after we get done talking about this, because we're going to be able to actually talk about some of these unknown players that people just don't really realize are good. So let's get into the injuries here. There's not a whole lot to talk about. Let's see. So with Washington, you do have Antonio Gibson. He's got an ankle injury. They haven't really officially, I can't find like official designations yet, like questionable or doubtful for this particular game. I mean, there's some out there. It's kind of difficult on a Tuesday for a Thursday game with multiple games. But in this case, the guys you really need to focus on, I don't really think that. Let me just look at the injury report here. I think Dontrell Inman is the main guy we have to focus on here. So he's been out for a couple of weeks. He was limited practice on Monday. He had a full practice on Tuesday today. So look, if Dontrell Inman comes back, we have to talk about him. We'll get to him when we get to the wide receivers. But Inman has traditionally this year been the number 2 guy. So we got to talk about him, figure out if he plays, if we're going to want to play him, and look at his price. But you got McLaren, who he did not practice on Monday. He was limited today. You got a guy like Dustin Hopkins, who has a groin injury, and for a kicker, that's not necessarily a good sign. He's DNP the last 2 days. So I don't even know if Draftkings has another kicker on the slate for him. We'll have to look at that when we talk about kickers. Antonio Gibson is a little banged up. I don't think there's anything to worry about. There's nothing really here from the fantasy side of things when it comes to skill positions that you have to really worry about besides Dontrell Inman. Next, we'll go over to the Cowboys. So it doesn't look like there's really anything major to talk about. You have some offensive linemen with some issues. You have Greg the Leg with a back injury. He had limited practice. Zeke Elliott was full practice with a hamstring injury. I don't think he's even going to be on the injury report. Brandon Knight and Joe Thomas, full practice. So I don't think you really have to worry about any injuries here. So when we talk about... Let's see. When we talk about Dontrell Inman, anything jump out to you right there? If he does play, what are your thoughts on Inman?
I mean, just given his price tag, he's definitely going to be in play for me. Honestly, I think it's going to be a little bit different, kind of just attacking the Washington Redskins in general. So I don't know how much you have to spend down on a guy like that on this sort of slate, because you have a couple guys that are priced a little bit higher than everybody else. Kind of there's a pretty steep fall off in the pricing here. So I think he's an interesting piece that could allow for you to get to get some savings and get a little different. But I think it depends on where flash news alert, right? Where we land on ownership. If ownership is going to be tightened up pretty high on the Dallas Cowboys and on that side of the ball, I really think you can get different just by stacking more Washington football players, I guess you call them, than anybody else. So yeah, I mean, he's interesting, man. Overall, I think the injury reports look pretty clean. The biggest thing, obviously, is Scary Terry. See if he's going to play. I fully anticipate pretty much all those guys to be in though. And then obviously Antonio Gibson, but that might just be the early week designation. I mean, half these guys aren't going they're going to be present for walkthroughs. They're not going to be actually practicing if you're one of the top 3 starters on some of these teams, especially during a short week. Yeah. So again, it's just something we're going to have to pay attention to throughout the week.
So before we move on to the breakdown, by the way, if you guys wouldn't mind liking this video, subscribing, we'd really appreciate it. We have separate videos for every single Showdown slate on Thanksgiving, accompanied by a 15-minute quick slant is what we're calling it. This video will also have a 15-minute quick slant. We're basically just talking about the same things we're talking about here, but we summarize things. In this particular video, we're going to get really deep. We're going to have our fade of the night. We're going to have our crown their ass segment with our favorite captain. We're going to get a lot deeper here, and I think for this game specifically, watching the full version is important, but if you can't, totally cool. Check out our 15-minute video, as well as if you guys are traveling for the holidays, check out our Spotify and our iTunes version of these. They're all uploaded, high-quality audio, so check those out if you can't watch this. Totally cool. We appreciate all the support. So let's move over to the breakdown, bro. Let's break it down. Break it down! All right, so we got Andy Dalton at 9,600, and we got Alex Smith at 9,800. I don't remember the last time we had 2 quarterbacks under 10K on a showdown slate. So this is kind of interesting to me. What are your just immediate thoughts on Andy Dalton versus Alex Smith? And this is definitely a situation where you don't have to have both of these guys. In fact, I think having both quarterbacks is going to really limit you in this particular game. What do you think?
Yeah, I think having both quarterbacks is going to be one of the chalkiest possible moves you can do, just because they're both priced relatively nice, and I think the highest player on the slate is at 11,000 overall. So I think there's going to be a lot of people jamming in both quarterbacks. I don't think you need to play either. I'll have exposure to both. I like Alex Smith a little bit better. I think he definitely has the ability. I mean, this guy, he'll throw for 350 yards with 3 touchdowns and no interceptions on quick slants. Like literally the quick slants Madden play all day long. Yeah. Right. So like he can get there. He is one of the more efficient quarterbacks that we've seen when he's a whole quarterback. And I think he looked good. I mean, it looked like he was ready to go, man. And then, I mean, just look at his attempts, too. I mean, last week he only had 25 attempts. The week before he had 55.
That's crazy.
And what did he do? 390 yards. Yeah. I mean, he didn't have any touchdowns, which is kind of ridiculous. But I mean, think about that. 16 fantasy points without any touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's got the ceiling. He's playing a very, very bad Dallas defense. I mean, they could be good if they decide to show up, but who knows? And I don't know if that team has enough spark to really play defense against Alex Smith and the Washington football team. So I like Alex Smith, man. I think he's a pretty solid play. And again, I don't, it's not that I don't like Dalton, but you got to start thinking about people to fade on this slate.
Yeah.
And I think the Washington defense is pretty solid. And I just don't think Andy Dalton is. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, one good game does not a quarterback make.
Well, look, we all know the stigma surrounding Andy Dalton in his career with the Bengals. He cannot play on primetime. He just can't. It's a fact. So this will be one of the biggest primetime games he's played. It's Thanksgiving at home in Dallas. There's so many Dallas fans. They're all going to be at home watching this. This is going to be one of the most viewed games of the whole season. I mean, I just don't think he's got it in him. He had a good game last week against Minnesota. You know, they won the game. You know, good for them. They're coming off a win. They have a little momentum. They're getting healthy. In my opinion, it doesn't matter. I think Washington is going to absolutely dominate this game. They have literally no pressure on them. The Cowboys have a shitload of pressure on them still. They're still America's team, and they're 3-7. If they lose this game on national television, holy shit. I don't even know what's going to happen. So, in my opinion, Andy Dalton is he's still a solid quarterback. I'm going to have exposure to him. There's no doubt about it. Because on a 46 total, he's just not going. If he ends up with a bad game but has 16 fantasy points, he might be in the optimal still. with that. He could throw for 2 interceptions, throw for 250 yards and 1 touchdown, something like that, and still end up in the optimal, and just by having an average game. That's just how these low-scoring slates go. So I don't think you have to have Andy and Alex Smith in the same lineup. In fact, I might just make a rule right there, because instantly I feel like I'm going to be different. I'd rather get Zeke Elliott. I'd rather get McLaurin. I'd rather get multiple of the running backs for Washington, which we'll get into. That's just my thought on things. Send us out of the quarterback section with any of your last thoughts on that.
Don't get us wrong. Andy Dalton absolutely has the potential to get into a rhythm with CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup, right? They have a lot of talent on this offense.
Yeah.
I just don't think he will. And he's going to be chalky. He's just going to be chalky. So it's an easier fade for me. That's all I have to say about the quarterbacks. I like Alex Smith, and I just like Andy Dalton much less.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so let's move on over to the running back situation for the Cowboys. I like both of these guys. You got Ezekiel Elliott at 10.6K. He came out last week for us on the main slate. We called it. He was, 3 or 4% owned. It was something ridiculously low. He had a pretty good game. He's 10.6K. I think he's overpriced, but I think you're gonna have to get to him. I think he's just that kind of player. And you also have Tony Pollard at 4,400. He's a good option. Tony Pollard has been getting some run with in replacing Ezekiel Elliott. I like Tony Pollard, and at 4,400, you might be able to sneak him in. He might go under the radar here. Excuse me. What are your thoughts on Pollard versus Ezekiel Elliott, and can you have both these guys in the same lineup?
Yeah, I think you can have both. I'm not going to do that very much because, I kind of like some of the run game on the other side too, and I really want Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
Look, I guess the easiest way I can say this is I think the safest play, or probably one of the better plays on this slate, is just getting running backs. Alex Smith is in a good position, right? But the Dallas defense sucks at the run, stopping the run. So I like the Redskins side of the ball. But just
Football
as
team.
much as, oh, wow, yeah, sorry, guys. And just as much as, I like the Washington defense, I don't know how they're going to do against Ezekiel Elliott. My biggest concern for this week is they're coming off of, I guess, what would be considered an emotional win after losing like 14 straight. And I just don't know if this team has, really like the wherewithal to play in such a high-stress environment. And that's why I don't like Andy Dalton. So all of that whole fucking story I just gave you guys is just more reason for me to want to play Ezekiel Elliott. I know we're going to start talking about negative correlation with all the running backs that I plan to have in my lineups, but I mean, he's still probably the best player on the field. Like I understand that they haven't had a great year, but he is a top 3 running back, and that is not a position that you really have a guy that you pay anymore. So I think that says a lot about what he's capable of. And I mean, look, he should be priced closer to 11.5, if I'm being honest, just because he has the ability to completely run through teams. So I like him. I think you're going to have the ability to pay for him. And I think he's in a good spot. Tony Pollard, he's okay. And at 4,400, I think he's probably going to be close to 15 to 20% ownership. So he's a nice little guy to jam in there for different builds. There might be a little bit of recency bias because I think he ended up catching or busting off like a 40-yard run at the end of the Vikings game.
Yeah, and he had a touchdown rush too.
Right. No, that was a touchdown run, wasn't it? Or was that, it just looked like 40 yards?
I think it was just a long-ass run. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So like he does have the ability to get those quality targets, and he has the ability to make the big play. So I think he's definitely one of those high risk, high reward guys that you can jam in there to get a little bit different. And just to your final question, yeah, you absolutely can stack both of them. But like I said at the beginning, I probably won't because I want Gibson too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, with Andy Dalton coming back, Zeke is trending up. I feel like they can establish the run with him because Andy Dalton can actually pass the ball. So the defense needs to, to protect both. And I think it's pretty obvious that Elliott has been like having better games since Andy Dalton has been coming back. I swear I can speak English. I'll get it out. Last week, besides last week, I mean, just look at 19 carries, 18 carries, 21 carries. Even when he has bad games, he's getting opportunity. He just needs that opportunity to actually score a touchdown. It's been a minute. So if he can actually get in the end zone in some of these games, I know he did last week. He had a receiving touchdown. But, like, for example, if against Pittsburgh, if he scored a touchdown there, we're talking it's a whole different outcome. And if he just gets in the end zone once, it's going to be pretty interesting here.
I mean, look, and not to get too carried away with this, but at the beginning of the season, he had 5 straight games with over 5 fantasy points, 4 of which were over 20, right? I mean, yeah, he's had 3 games this season under 10, but other than that, he hasn't scored less than 14. So, I mean, he's a touchdown away from completely changing the direction of his fantasy output.
Exactly.
That's it.
To summarize this, I would say fade Tony because, in my opinion, Tony Pollard might be a little bit higher owned than he should be because people saw that run, people saw that touchdown, and he might be a little bit higher owned than he should be. I'm just okay with going really heavy on Zeke Elliott this week. I think he's the workhorse. They're going to give it to him. They have no reason not to. Go with Zeke Elliott. I know he's expensive, but in my opinion, he's going to be well worth it. Let's move over to one of my favorite things to talk about here. This is going to be the Washington running back situation. This is pretty interesting, and we're actually going to get into a segment here where we hear Ron Rivera talk about some stuff. But for now, let's just talk about the pricing and the 3 options we have here. So we've got Antonio Gibson at 10.2K. I think he's going to be under-owned because of the fact that Zeke is right around the same price. It's hard to pay up for a guy you don't know. Like a lot, he's just not a household name. Antonio Gibson is a pretty damn good player. He has a knack for the red zone. He has a knack for the end zone. But JD McKissic at 7K, he's actually getting more snaps than Antonio Gibson. He's getting a ton of targets. He's running a shitload of targets. His market share for targets on the season is second on the team. So he's up there. JD McKissic is a great option at 7K. And then you have Peyton Barber, which is another great option. So real quick, we're going to move into our horse's mouth segment where we hear some of the coaches talking.
I just want to know from the horse's mouth, what is the dealio?
Guys, I've been trusting Antonio Gibson down there in the goal line. He's really been excelling there. What about Antonio makes him so good about capping off drives with touchdowns inside of the 5? And when did you first realize you could trust him in that valuable role?
Well, again, we've kind of done it from the beginning. We gave him opportunities in the Philly game, and it's paid off. And because of that, I think that's really what's happened. You get into a game, you really don't know what's going to happen. All of a sudden, he does it. He shows that he's got a knack for the goal line. He's got this innate ability to find that crease. And he runs. He runs behind his pads. I know it's an expression, but he runs with some power. He runs physically. He's not going to get arm tackled. Very rarely does he get arm tackled. So, he's got that skill set that you're looking for in a back. And quite honestly, Peyton Barber has the same type of skill set. So, we're
That's
fortunate
important.
we have a couple of backs that do have a good nose for the goal line.
So that's important, in my opinion. Sorry, I'm having an issue with my audio here. And you hearing me okay, Ellie?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's pretty important, in my opinion. I think that just the fact that he mentioned Peyton Barber, that's kind of a big deal, don't you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely something to take note of. Peyton Barber, he used to do it to me last year too in showdown slates when he was on the Bucs. He gets those weird opportunities where he gets just vulture touchdowns. I hate to say it, but that's pretty much where he comes in. So yeah. I can definitely see him sneaking in at $800 and grabbing a touchdown, maybe 2 receptions or something of that nature.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think this backfield's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting, and I think this is where you can end up making a lot of money on Thursday.
I think I'm going to go all in on these guys. I'm not going to have a ton of Peyton Barber because it's a situational thing. We've seen it, a vulture here, a vulture touchdown there. He's touchdown dependent. I can't rely on him. But like you're talking about, if you had JD McKissic and Barber in a lineup together, and Barber stole the touchdown from Antonio Gibson, you're living large. You're gonna feel pretty good about yourself. I'm okay with getting McKissick in, like, I'll get him in 80% of my lineups. I think he's a great fucking play.
I mean, you may as well just have him at wide receiver. I mean, if he's getting number 2 target share, right, then you can't really count it as a handcuff, because Antonio Gibson's going to get a bulk of the work. And just speaking of that, just while we're on this, I forgot that this is a division game, so they played already this year. You know what Antonio Gibson did that game?
What?
128 rush yards, right? And how many touchdowns? Yeah, 1 touchdown. He had 18.8 points.
Yep.
So, like, I mean, so we have a sample size here. And look, this kid's a rookie. And I understand that I think the Cowboys have Kyle Van Der Esch back now, and Sean Lee's back. Actually, Van Der Esch might have gotten hurt again. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But they make a little bit of a difference on the defense. But again, like, this defense is so bad, I just don't know that they're going to be able to stop these guys. And then even in that game, McKissick got 5 carries, 35 yards, and 2 targets for 2 receptions. Dude, McKissick has weeks in here of 14 targets, 15 targets. I mean, that's crazy. There's no reason to not want to play both these guys.
Absolutely. And even stacking it with Alex Smith is a great option. Like, he's getting targets, man. It's crazy.
Bro, throwing Scary Terry, Zeke, and a fucking kicker, and you're good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that Dallas game was week 7. So he's been trending up lately. In the last 4 weeks, he's really been crushing it, All right, so let's move on to the wide receivers for the football team. We've got sorry.
What do we call them? I come up with something, man.
I know. Come up with something.
Yourself.
Yeah,
anything.
Okay, so we're looking at Terry McLaurin. Is it McLaurin? Why do I say his name wrong? McLaurin or McLaren?
I'm pretty sure it's McLaurin.
McLaurin,
I have
right?
no idea, so I don't want to butcher his name.
It's
Scary Terry.
Scary Terry. That's what we're gonna call him.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow on the broadcast. They'll mess up his name multiple times, and his mother will tweet about the correct pronunciation of his name or something like that.
No, I'm sure he's watching this show, right?
Oh yeah, he's totally tuning in.
Scary Terry, if you're watching this, I don't know.
Tweet
I guess
us.
Record yourself saying your name. All right, thanks, man.
All right, so Scary Terry at 11K. He's worth it, man. He's worth it. I know it's a lot, but in this particular game, I mean, if this was up against another team, if Washington was going up against, I don't know, the Ravens or the Steelers, okay, 11K might be a little bit much. But in this particular game, he's going to get a ton of targets. They're going to target him like crazy. Alex Smith already has pretty good chemistry with him. There's really nothing to talk about here. He's the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3 wide receiver on this team. He's the man. When it comes to Dontrell Inman, let's take a look at some of his info here. He has been the number 2 guy before he got injured. He went out in week 6. So he played weeks 1 through 6. He had a 2 touchdown game against Cleveland. That was his best output. Look, it's nothing sexy here, nothing to write home about. But when you have a player at 1,400, you just have to talk about him, because these are the kind of plays you need to investigate guys like this that can get you a touch, get you 10 fantasy points, because you're gonna need that salary. So you got Inman. Look, you got Cam Sims, who's basically, look, if Inman plays, that really, in my opinion, hurts Cam Sims. Cam Sims has been the number 2 guy lately of the past few weeks. He's at 4,000. I really like him too. Steven Sims Jr., I like him too at 2,800. I mean, look at the red arrow next to their salary. All their salaries are going down besides McLaren. So something interesting to think about. Isaiah Wright, I don't know if I'm going to really have any of him, but he's worth talking about. Besides Scary Terry, who is your favorite other option here? Who are you going to target?
J.D. McKissick. Look, so here's the thing: is I don't think even like some of these sites know what to tag the Sims brothers at, because they're projected for damn near the same amount of output. I think the $2,800 Sims is fine. He's going to get a little bit of action. He has the opportunity to get 2 catches for 40, 50 yards. What did he have last week? I think he had 10 points or something. Yeah, 10.3 points, 3 targets, 3 receptions, and a receiving touchdown. The week before, he had 6 targets, and then before that, it's kind of spotty. But all in all, man, I really don't give a shit about this position. Dontrell Inman is interesting at 1,400. But I'm going to just do whatever I need to play as much Terry McLaurin I possibly can. If that means I have to start jamming in guys like Wright or Inman, I might revisit a little bit of my build strategy. But, I think that there's going to be plenty of ways to get to some of these guys. And pretty much if your name's not Terry McLaurin at the wide receiver position, I really am going to do everything I can to not have to play you. I just don't care about these guys that much. And Dontrell Inman, jeez, we've seen it before. He's had flashes of brightness when he's been given that opportunity to be the 1 or the 2 receiver.
Former Colt, right? Yeah, he was on the Colts.
Former Colt and former Charger. So his biggest stuff was when Keenan Allen and Mike Williams would go down together or whatever, and then he'd have to step up. Mm-hmm. And he's a balanced physical receiver as well as got a little bit of speed. So he does have the ability to really take over in that role. Yeah. So I am slightly interested in him at 1,400, but again, that's still a flyer that you don't need more than 1 or 2 lineups of. But yeah, hot take, play Terry McLaurin.
So hear me out on this. Since week 8, the snap rate or snap percentage for this team, Terry McLaurin, 96%, Cam Sims, 85%. He's second amongst wide receivers in targets, second amongst wide receivers in air yards. So look, if Dontrell Inman plays, I don't know that they're going to just replace Cam Sims. I don't know if Inman just comes in and takes over those snaps. I think you have a young guy that maybe they want to develop. Inman is not a young guy anymore. I don't really know how old he is. He's probably in his 5th or 6th year, wouldn't you say, Dontrell Inman? I don't think he's super young. My point being is if Inman comes back, that could affect Cam Sims. If Inman is out, I think Cam Sims at 4,000 is a really good play. If you can't afford Scary Terry, put him in with McKissick, and you get a lot of that volume there when it comes to the wide receivers. So let's move over to the other side of the ball. This is always interesting talking about Dallas. They have a lot of talent here. So we've got, when it comes to pricing here, we've got CeeDee Lamb. He had an amazing catch last week. There was a lot of good catches in that game. He had the Thielen catch. We had the CeeDee Lamb catch where he was falling on his back and he caught it with one hand. It was amazing. It was a highlight reel. Totally cool catch. He's priced up to 9,200, so he's the most expensive wide receiver on this team. I think it's probably warranted. There's some recency bias there, but he's a young player. He's dynamic. He's becoming sort of a household name. When you play for the Cowboys and you do well, you become pretty popular. So 9,200 I feel is a little expensive for him, but I don't think it's too bad. I think you can sprinkle him in. Amari Cooper at 8K. Traditionally speaking, he's been the number 1 guy. He's getting paid like it. I personally think he is still the number 1 wide receiver on this team. You got Michael Gallup, who I actually really like Michael Gallup. I just don't think, I don't know what it is. I don't know why he's not getting targets. I don't know why he's not getting on the field as much. These are really the 3 guys you got to look at. You got Cedric Wilson at 400, Noah Brown 200. I don't think I'm going to take a flyer on any of those guys. Ellie, who's your favorite option here? Who do you like? Who do you not like? Do you like anybody from this? Are you going to get a lot of exposure to wide receivers if you don't have Dalton?
No, probably not. I mean, look, Michael Gallup at 3,400 is interesting. He obviously has a pretty smash upside.
Yeah.
Let's see. Other than that, Amari Cooper at 8K. He's always an interesting player. He has the ability to put up numbers. But CeeDee Lamb is a little priced up for me. And again, playing any of these guys is 100% reliant upon Dalton.
Yeah.
And I know I'm kind of doubling down by not playing Dalton and not playing these receivers. But if he can't throw the ball, nobody's going to catch it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. I never want Cedric Wilson or Noah Brown. I mean, Cedric Wilson, if you wanted to get crazy, I think he gets involved in like the return game and shit. So if you decide to stack Dallas defense with Cedric Wilson, he could just be fucking weird and do some dumb shit like that.
Yeah.
But other than that,
he did have a 2
think,
touchdown. Sorry to interrupt you. He did have a 2 touchdown game. He had 107 yards, 5 receptions against Seattle in week 3 and 2 touchdowns. So it's something to look at. When you got a guy that comes out and does that, that was with Dak, I'm pretty sure. So that was one of those. That was that crazy ass Seattle game back in the earlier part of the year, which seems like years ago at this point. So keep an eye on him. He's trending down. I mean, look at his targets; they're dwindling. He's got 2, 3 at the most, and it's not a lot of opportunity. Go ahead, bro. Sorry.
No. That's really kind of what I was getting at. Like, I mean, look, this is a completely different offense when you have Dak in there. All these guys become weapons because they are weapons.
Yeah.
But again, I think fucking Andy Dalton's got a worse arm than Tom Brady did last night.
Yeah.
And I just don't expect much from him. And Cedric Wilson requires those plays to be out in the open field, to be screen passes. And the other thing to keep in mind is they're not playing the Seattle defense.
Yeah.
And that matters to me. And with that said, that also matters to me with some of these receivers. Now, let's not get lost here. CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper are 2 of the better route runners in the NFL. Amari Cooper is probably one of the top 3. So, and I know my boy from Alabama. I keep a pretty close eye on some of these guys.
You son of a bitch.
I think I've done an Alabama reference in almost every show, and
Yeah.
I think that's more of a testament to how often they get the players.
It's true.
in the NFL.
It's true.
So don't forget about that. Look, Amari Cooper has the ability to go off. CeeDee Lamb has the ability to go off, and so does Michael Gallup. It's just you're being trusting of Andy Dalton at that point. Now, if you're stacking a lot of Andy Dalton, they'd be a fool to not tell you to stack up on some of these wide receivers, because he for sure isn't throwing to these random fucks.
Yeah.
So I think you're okay playing these guys. I probably won't get to them. I want to spend as much money on kind of the elite players, the 3 or 4 really good players on the Washington's football team group.
I just think you got to get one of these guys because one of them has to go off. Look, Zeke has the absolute ability to go off. He just got a little bit of a tougher matchup with the Washington football defense, but he's almost matchup proof. So I feel like you got to have one of these guys. And hear me out here on Michael Gallup. We talk about opportunity a lot in Showdown. It's really important. Since week 8, Michael Gallup has been getting 89% of the snaps, Amari Cooper 79, and CeeDee Lamb 54. Now look, I know CeeDee Lamb is trending up, so recently he's been getting more snaps. But I'm trying to open up the gate a little bit here to look at a little bit more sample size. I don't necessarily want to look at the whole season, but I want to look at the last few weeks. And Michael Gallup has been the guy. He's been on the field 90% of the time. His target share is the highest on the team. His air yards are the highest on the team over that span. So, a guy who's 3,400, who's leading his team in snaps and air yards and targets, I don't care who's throwing him the ball. Like we saw with Ben DiNucci, Michael Gallup was in the optimal lineup. He was getting screen passes. He was getting slants. Keep an eye on Michael Gallup. I know he's disappointing, but he's going to be so low owned because people are tired of playing him. But at 3,400, he's the guy who can catch 2 touchdowns and score and get 100+ yards on this slate. I know that CeeDee Lamb is going to be way over owned because he had a great game last week. But you know what? Guess what? Washington football defense coaches, they know he had a great game. They're going to game plan for that. Michael Gallup slips under the radar. They can't guard all 3 of these guys. Just my personal opinion on it. My favorite. Go ahead, bro.
I have one last thing to say about this too. So look at the last Dallas-Washington game. Michael Gallup had 2 targets, and no receptions.
Yeah.
They got their asses whooped, 25-3.
Yeah.
Right. I understand that was pretty damn close to the Dak injury, and there's a lot of emotions flying around. But you could be thinking of that. Mike McCarthy is not a fool. He's a great offensive mind, right? He's going to come into this game saying, "What didn't we do that week?" Well, you obviously didn't try to get Gallup involved, and that's the one outlying performance when it comes to his just overall target share from this entire season. So they may try and get him involved early just because of everybody knows CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper are great, but how can you cover all 3 of them? So I think he's really interesting at 3,400, man.
Yeah.
And I'll have a decent amount.
Bro, my face looks purple. I need to get a new camera here. Do you see that? I look like fucking Barney here. All right. It's probably my shirt. That's the color temp, the auto color temp is acting crazy. All right, so let's move on to, we talked about all the wide receivers. Let's move on to tight end here. This is pretty interesting. So we'll start with Dallas. You got Dalton Schultz at 6,200. I believe he had a touchdown catch last week, right? Yeah, he did. So he's getting some decent volume. The last 3 weeks, 8 targets, 7 targets, 6 targets. He's had 3 touchdowns this year. 2 of those were with Dak. So it's kind of interesting. I think he's going to slip under the radar. I'm not really huge on this guy. You also have Blake Bell, who looks like he's potentially injured. I don't know about Blake Bell. Keep an eye on the inactive list, but I'm not likely to go to him, even though he's $600. Dalton Schultz, what do you think about him?
Yeah, excuse me. I think he's in play. I like tight ends. I like all these random guys. I like Blake Jarwin when he's healthy, and I like Dalton Schultz. I think I have him in a season long. I think he's an interesting option to kind of get different off of the clear chalk. Again, the ownership's going to be so tightly concentrated in certain groupings of players that I think pretty much any one of these periphery guys can fall on the wayside.
Yeah,
and from a defensive perspective, that's essentially what could easily happen in this game. If everybody's focused on all of these big name guys, Dalton Schultz could just run up the seam and end up doing okay. So yeah. I think it's very possible that he has a decent game. And his price is a little bit higher than you might expect.
Yeah.
So there's a potential that ownership could even dip a little bit further than anticipated from that. And given his price tag, you're going to need to stack. I'm going to need somebody specifically to stack on the Cowboys side of the ball who's going to be a little bit more cost effective. So I definitely think that he's in play. As far as the other guy or 2 guys, whoever the fuck they ended up activating on Thanksgiving, I don't give a shit about them.
Yeah.
Maybe Blake Bell, but again, I think that's more of a 150 max type thing.
There are other options. Yeah, if you're doing 20-40 lineups, I'm not touching that guy. All right, so let's move over to our favorite subject here. We've got kickers and defense. This is a lower total game. You have the potential of some bad offenses here. These are 3-7 teams. They get into the red zone, they can't punch it in. It's not working out for them. They kick a field goal. You could end up with 3 or 4 field goals from both of these guys. It looks like Dustin Hopkins is potentially injured. I don't see anybody else. Do you see anybody in your player pool, any additional kickers from the Washington side of things? On Fantasy Cruncher, they're the only kickers. I mean, it's possible they'll add one if shit gets crazy, but
no, I don't even have here, let's try tight end projected. Yeah, I don't even know if they have another one on their roster.
So both of these guys are injured. Both of them are limited. So just keep an eye on that, because look, there's a situation where both kickers, I don't know, like, do they go out and sign a guy to tomorrow? But you can't even do that. I don't even know if they have an additional kicker on the roster. So obviously, if these guys are injured to the point where the teams think they might not play, they would have already gone out and got a kicker. You can't just bring a guy in right now. They have to quarantine. There's a waiting period. So, in my opinion, if there isn't already a kicker on as a backup kicker on these lineups, we'll look into that for sure. Follow us on Twitter. We can talk about that. But the only reason why I really care about this is because kickers are in play for this game. And if Dustin Hopkins is ruled out 90 minutes prior to lock, he might be 10% owned in some of these. He might not even play, and he might be 10-15% owned. So when it comes to, first of all, 3,800 and 3,600 for these guys. And then you look at Washington football team's defense at 4,800. I think they're priced pretty well because they're the only defense I'm going to consider. And you have the Cowboys defense at 2,400. So how are you handling this? Are you going to have any double kicker lineups? Are you going to have a kicker and a defense lineup? What do you think?
Look, I'm okay with I don't know how to attack this approach, because it is a little bit different, man. I like Washington's defense in this situation, but the part that's got me a little bit torn is how much do I like them? Do I like them enough to stop? Dallas can be so bad. Do I like the Washington defense enough to shut them down to 3 to 10 points? If so, I don't want any of whoever the Cowboys kicker is.
Yeah.
Right. If the Cowboys have the potential to put up 15, 16 points, then you're probably going to get a long field goal or two and a couple extra points, maybe. So I really don't know how I feel about the Cowboys kicker. Obviously, I have no interest in the Cowboys defense. Unless Dwayne Haskins is announced the last minute starter, I'm really not going to play them.
Bro, why? Okay, I'm sorry. I got to ask you this. Why isn't Dwayne Haskins playing? You have a quarterback who's 57 years old who almost died 2 years ago, and he's starting over Dwayne Haskins? What the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, but so Dwayne Haskins is similar to, like, okay, so don't take this in the way that it's going to sound, right? He's kind of like when Pat Mahomes came out of college. He was a very raw player, doesn't have much understanding of the fundamentals. He never had to really read a defense, or he's the best fucking player on the field, and he's better than everybody at it, right? So there's a different kind of ability that he has, and him sitting behind, well, who was it? It was actually Alex Smith, right? Was one of those things that helped him kind of develop, and his mechanics developed so much more impressively, right? His biggest thing was he never planted his feet. He never had a clean drop back and things along those lines. His
coach was Jay Gruden, and Mahomes has fucking Andy Reid. So there's
yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
He hasn't been developed, and Ron Rivera is doing the right thing. This team kind of likes they like Dwayne Haskins. They understand that he has the ability and the talent to do well, but he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Don't turn him into Jamarcus Russell when he has the ability to be something similar to like a lower tier Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree with it. I don't crush this man's confidence. He already plays for Washington. Give him a chance.
I mean, somebody should just trade him. I mean, they should just. I mean, it's a new head coach. He didn't draft a guy. Just trade him and give him an opportunity to start somewhere. If you are benched like this, the team doesn't look at you the same. You just got to get a fresh start. I think they should trade him for anything. Trade him for a 7th round pick at this point. Just get rid of him. Let him have another opportunity to play, because I think he can play. All right, enough with that. We're going to move on to our fades of the night. We're telling somebody to go fuck themselves. Who are we going to tell?
What's your name? Tony! Fuck you, Tony!
Fade of the night.
I wish Tony Romo played.
Yeah, I know, right? Fade of the night. This is strange. We don't typically agree on things like this. We usually have a little bit of a different take. I think it's pretty obvious. Andy Dalton's the fade for me. I mean, look, my fade of the night for the Rams game and Buccaneers game was Cooper Kupp. So obviously that didn't work out too well for me. I still had lineups with him. I'm not saying uncheck him and don't get any lineups. Just go under the field. I'd rather get less Andy Dalton, more of his wide receivers, or more Ezekiel Elliott than anybody else. Because I think I'm gonna have a lot of 4-2 stacks this week. I'm gonna have a lot of 4-2 Washington stacks. So I have to make a decision. Do I want to go Andy Dalton and Ezekiel Elliott? Do I want to go Andy Dalton and Gallup? Or maybe I want to go Gallup and Ezekiel Elliott. That kind of a run back for the Cowboys. I'm not going to get a lot of Cowboys this week, so I need to make a decision on who to play. I'd rather just sit Andy Dalton and hope for some higher upside players. What is your reasoning behind this?
Yeah, literally everything you just said, and this is random. I meant to call this out when we were talking about Dalton Schultz, but I'm pretty sure the only 2 redheads play for the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. I've never seen another redhead, and both of them are fucking named Dalton.
That's weird.
What is this bullshit?
That's weird.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't even think about that until we were looking that up, and I know I digress. But look, man, that's about the biggest claim to fame that Andy Dalton has, and that triggered me it triggered a memory because when he got drafted, he's the only. There was some stat that came up on ESPN. He was the only redheaded quarterback that had ever been drafted in the NFL. There's some bullshit.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, it was something weird, and that always kind of stuck with me. But that I mean, it stuck with me because he hasn't done anything else to, change that impression. Like, he could have been the best redheaded quarterback to ever play the game, right? Yeah. And I know it's a really weird thing to call out, but I think it's an example of just how underwhelming he's been since he's been in the league. I mean, you got to imagine the dude had fucking Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, and AJ Green and couldn't get shit done. Like, he's like the reverse Carson Palmer. He just destroyed the franchise even worse than what it was in Cincinnati. So I don't think he's going to get there. I don't like him.
All right, so now we're going to move on to our captain pick here. Once again, this is a little interesting. Stay tuned here. Let's throw it to Dennis Green here for some help.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
We're crowning their ass on DraftKings for our captain choice. We both had J.D. McKissic. Now, look, full disclosure here. I text Ellie. I go, yo, what the fuck are your choices? He texts me. I don't tell. I already made my choice. I've already made the graphic for myself. So both of these choices came in. We seem to both agree on things. I don't know if that's a sign that we're both going to just get our ass absolutely kicked this week, or maybe we'll win some money. But I like the fact that we're both agreeing on this. J.D. McKissic, in my opinion, at that price, if you put him at captain, you can really have a lot of great players, and he's going to be super low owned. Like, I'm pretty damn sure he'll be 4%. He'll be under 5%. Like, I'm almost positive on that. What do you think, Ellie? Like, what are your thoughts on his captain ownership, and how does putting him in the lineup create a different roster construction for you?
I love him at captain, and I think he'll probably be sub 5%. I'd be impressed if he was anything over 4%, really. I mean, I just fully anticipate Ezekiel Elliott and Terry McLaurin really to kind of be the top end of the spectrum here. Yeah. And then again, you have CeeDee Lamb, you have Amari Cooper, like you have these other guys who are just so well priced and clearly just absolute beasts, right? That I think they're going to dominate the ownership. And McKissic is a second string running back. So I just don't think anybody's going to land on a second string running back to run out here. And if it is, it'll probably be Tony Pollard. But I love him at captain, man. I think it gives you a lot of flexibility, and I think you're going to see we're going to see it, since it's not going to be too hard to determine who we want to start our build with. Yeah. But you'll see the flexibility that you get at this position, and the other side of this is everybody is kind of. I expect that people are expecting the run game to kind of come through. So I expect Antonio Gibson to be fairly chalky. Yeah. And I expect McKissic to be chalky in the flex as well. To be honest with you. But I really don't anticipate many people being heavy in Washington in this game build in this game anyways. So I think you're going to have unique leverage by just jamming as many Redskins players, or, oh my God, Washington football players in as you possibly can. And you're going to be okay. And again, I think McKissic gives you that option being a captain.
Pretty much any Redskin player, oh, Jesus Christ, any football team player besides Scary Terry in the captain, you're going to be unique. We're talking about the Dallas Cowboys. This is Thanksgiving. There's going to be a ton of casual players jumping on, throwing $20-$30 into the pool, and they're going to build chalky lineups. So if you just think a little bit different, if you can get away from quarterbacks in the captain, if you can get away from CeeDee Lamb in the captain, things like that, you're going to be able to be. This is one of my favorite slates in the past few weeks when it comes to Showdown, because there's not a clear, obvious captain choice. I mean, obviously Zeke and then the wide receivers are going to be very popular, but you don't have to get them. I feel like, McKissic can go off. He can be potentially not the highest scoring player on the slate, and you could still win because you can spread around all these other guys in the flex. So, Ellie, we have to actually take a step back. I messed up. I totally forgot about a really important player here. We have the football team's tight ends that we just skipped right over. You got
you're right.
Logan Thomas, former Arizona Cardinals quarterback at tight end. This dude is getting like basically 100% of the snaps. He's absolutely crushing it this year. Now, well, he's not having necessarily the best fantasy year, but he's on the field all the time. He's getting opportunity. Let's look at some of his previous output. So his high this year is 16. He has 4 games over 10 points. he has a relative, he's got a 2.1 point floor. He can have a bad game. I think it all depends on who's actually throwing him the ball. Like last week, he only had 2 points. So this is a guy that I actually kind of like, Logan Thomas. And at that price tag at 5,400, I think he's going to be well underowned. I just don't know if he fits into a lot of lineups because there's other options around him that are better. What are your thoughts on Jeremy Sprinkle and Logan Thomas?
I don't give a shit about Jeremy Sprinkle. Logan Thomas is fine. I anticipate his ownership is probably going to be pretty low just for the reasons you stated. But given his price, he's kind of a nice additional piece. So if you don't, for example, want to run Alex Smith back or run Alex Smith in your Washington stack, you can just go ahead and grab McLaurin, Gibson, McKissick, and Logan Thomas, and you're capturing pretty much all of the snaps and a large portion of the volume. So I think he's decent, and he gives you that ability to kind of sped up on the other side of the ball. So if you do that, you'll probably be able to get Zeke and like Coop. So I think he gives you a little bit of flexibility here, and I'm glad you brought him up because I forgot about it, and I he's pretty much the season long, or he's pretty much the main slate cash staple tight end at this point. So I've kind of been trying to keep an eye on him. I think he's in a great spot. But again, relying upon other people not getting the ball. So it'll be interesting. I don't think you need to go more than 4 or 5 lineups. But then again, we say that all the time. You got to build how your builds work out. If you're more comfortable playing 70% Logan Thomas than you are fucking Jeremy Sprinkle, then play more Logan Thomas. So
exactly.
That's how I feel about that.
All right, let's build a lineup, bro. Let's do it.
Cool.
All right, so we got McKissick at captain. I think it's pretty obvious. Where do you want to go from here? Do we want to do a 4-2? McKissick at captain, we can do whatever the hell we want. We can do a 3-3, we can do 4-2. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I want 4-2.
Yeah, look, I'm very confident that the football team is going to win this game. Now, we could check it. That's the kiss of death. They'll probably get their ass kicked, but I just really like the momentum here. It's a division game. I just like them, so I'm gonna get a 4-2. I'm gonna go with a lot of 4-2s, and I might get a ton of McKissick at the captain. So, do we want to? The biggest question here is: do we want to have Alex Smith, or do we want to fade him and just go all non-quarterbacks in the flex?
Let's do non-quarterbacks. Let's go with the fade for the first build.
I love it. So we got to get Ezekiel Elliott in here, in my opinion.
100%.
So who's our other? Do we want to pick our other Dallas guy now, or do we want to go to another Washington guy?
I mean, I think we jam in the players we want.
Let's do it.
I mean,
do you want to get
McLaurin?
You want to get McLaurin?
We got him. Yeah.
All right, so let's get Scary Terry. Can we get Antonio Gibson in this lineup too?
100%.
Oh god, dude, this is looking good. Okay, so we need a cheapie. So we've got one Dallas player. Who's a cheap option on Dallas? Actually, you know what? I just answered my own question. Let's go with Michael Gallup. Bro, I like this lineup so far. So we have 4,300. We can go any direction we want. We could go 4-2. We can add another Washington guy, or we can go Dallas. Just all depends. The chalkier way would be to go a 3-3, but with McKissick at captain, it doesn't really matter. We're going to be unique. Well, who can we jam in there at 4.3K?
At 4.3, I mean, hold on.
We could almost get Tony Pollard. I don't know if we need it. I think we need somebody else here.
I mean, look, dude, if you want to get real weird with it, I don't think Cam Sims is awful. Dustin Hopkins.
Yeah. So
those
look,
are both.
So for the sake of this, let's just throw a kicker in. Let's throw the Dallas kicker in. Greg the Leg. This is a little bit more of a safer bet here, in my opinion. You got the field goals, you got some Dallas options, you got Gallup if he goes off. I would rather do this. I would rather say F that, and I'd rather go. Yeah, I'd rather go Steven Sims here, in my opinion. Or if Dontrell Inman starts, go there. I'm not afraid to leave. I've left fucking 6,000-7,000 on the table. It doesn't scare me. In this case, I don't think you need to. I think with McKissick in the captain, 2,000, 3,000 at most. I kind of like this one. I do. Any other variations to this lineup that you can think of?
Yeah. So another interesting one that is worth throwing out there is if you want to swap out Zeke, you can jam in Andy Dalton.
Okay.
And for Gallup, let's throw in Logan Thomas. Let's see where that puts us.
3,300.
That's a little low for me. So tell you what, let's swap out Logan Thomas for the Washington football team.
Defense, love it. I mean, look, just
Dustin Hopkins.
Dustin Hopkins. Okay, cool. So look,
that's a 5-1, but still.
Holy shit, you're right. Hey man, it's all about game script. Look at that. Look, playing a defense against the opposing quarterback is fun because look, all you need is an interception for a touchdown. You need a punt return. You need a fumble recovery for a touchdown. If Andy Dalton throws one interception for a touchdown and he gets a fumble for another touchdown, it's only -2 points for him. All right.
Bro, they had 6 sacks last time they played.
Yeah, exactly. So you're talking about you just because it's negatively correlated doesn't mean that in a showdown slate, Andy Dalton can't still score 18 fantasy points while Washington football team can score 18 fantasy points too. So just something to think about. I actually really like their defense this week, to be honest. All right, man. So talk to me about your final thoughts on this game. This is the midday game. So everyone's what time is this happening here? Do you know?
4:30 Eastern.
4:30 Eastern. So it's right around dinner time on the East Coast. People are going to be eating, hanging out. This is the a lot of eyes are going to be on this game. How are you handling this? Who do you think is going to win? I mean, we've already talked about that. It's a Washington win in both of our opinions. What's the final score? What's your prediction of final score? You nailed the final score the other day on Monday Night Football. Let's do it again.
Yeah, I've got 27-10 Washington. I don't think Dallas has a chance in this. I think I think the Washington defense is going to get to Andy Dalton early and often. And I honestly think Ezekiel Elliott's still going to rush for 100 yards and a touchdown.
I was going to ask you, who's your favorite player on Dallas if we had to target one guy? I would say Zeke as well. I would say that too. I know it's interesting because if we are game scripting that they're going to be losing, it's kind of an interesting build to have Zeke in there. But I just think he's matchup proof. They're going to get him the ball as much as humanly possible. I'd rather rely on him than any of those wide receivers, although I do like Gallup.
Their offensive line, man. Like the Dallas offensive line is trash. The best way to establish your line is to run the ball well. That's all I got to say.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We really appreciate everything. We have 2 other Showdown videos that are already uploaded. Check those out. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you for... Are we doing Sunday night? There's probably a Sunday Night Football game, right? I'm assuming there is this week.
There is.
Yeah, we'll see you guys for Sunday Night Football. Yeah. Enjoy your guys' Thanksgiving. We appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot, guys. Take it easy.